say first, because she probably doesn't want to talk shit about her opponent. She's running for assembly in the 68th District, Santa Ana, Western Orange, and the Anaheim Flatlands, east of the 5, which is where about half of us live. I want to emphasize how different she is from her Democratic opponent, David Peñaloza, right night and day. Our choice between Jessie and David is, among other things, our choice of what Democrats should stand for. There are three big issues that came up while they were both on Santa Ana City Council that illustrate how different they are, how different their priorities are. One is rent control and tenant protections, which Santa Ana voters overwhelmingly passed and which Jessie was always a champion of. David and his two conservative colleagues not only opposed Santa Ana's rent control, but they've done everything they could to sabotage it, right? Including refusing to appoint anyone as their representative to Santa Ana's Renters Board, making it very difficult for it to work the way it should. To me, this is bigger than the issue of rent control. It's defying the will of Santa Ana's people. And no surprise, David gets a lot of contributions from the landlord associations and developers. Second issue, the police, their contracts and their accountability. David and his three conservative colleagues get a lot of money from the Santa Ana's very corrupt police union, which dominates politics there as much as Disney does here. Jessie and the progressives have voted against the unaffordable police raises and contracts which David has supported. And Jessie has been a champion of Santa Ana's Police Review Board, which David and his friends have done their best to sabotage. A couple of years ago, the police union launched a recall on Jessie, a recall that David supported, and I'm proud that I helped campaign against that. The police union spent 8 times more than the people. It was 8 times, right? And told countless lies, and for once the truth won out against big money and lies, because people, by that point, people knew Jessie. They knew when they were hearing lies. Jessie beat that recall overwhelmingly. She beat big money, lies, and David Peñaloza. Number 3, and this isn't really something the councils or assembly has much influence on, but last year when Santa Ana voted on a resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza, Jessie voted yes, just like we did last year on our own ceasefire resolution. David voted no. Actually, he walked out in protest. And when you look at his contributions, a lot of them are from Zionist groups. Who knows what they want with him in the assembly? But these days, with Israel's current leadership dragging us into a war with Iran, Democratic opposition to Israel's current leadership is now up to 80%. There has to be a limit to our funding and support of Israel's destructive behavior, and we Democrats need to be on the right side of that. I've mentioned David's campaign contributions, but I don't like to suggest that every politician's vote is determined by who gives them money. That might be too cynical. I think it's more that politicians like David identify with the powerful and privileged. And the powerful and the privileged know that and appreciate it, and they express that appreciation with money, dark money. Most depressingly, guess who the DPOC and State Party are backing? They're backing David Peñaloza, the friend of the powerful, the comforter of the comfortable, the afflictor of the afflicted. That's embarrassing. A few years ago, the most conservative California Democrat of all, Tom Daley, chose Avelino Valencia as his replacement. And now that Avelino is moving on up to the Senate, he's chosen David Peñaloza to take his place. David, on his campaign material, boasted his establishment and institutional support. And by the way, we did invite David. I know he didn't want to hear from me, so I had Steve call him. But he asked Steve, "Are you guys a charter club?" And Steve had to say no, and he hung up. So, I don't know if that's what you guys want. But anyway, first let's listen to Jessie Lopez, and after you've heard her speak and answer all your questions, we should vote to endorse her or not. Jessie Lopez.
Yay!
Thanks, Vern. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Jessie Lopez. I'm a council member in the city of Santa Ana. I was first elected in 2020, and some of the big policies that I helped fought to not just implement but fund and defend as well was Santa Ana's historic rent control ordinance. It is the lowest in the county and the state at 3%. And if you know anything about housing policy, you know that at the state level we have the 2019 Tenant Protection Act, but that's capped at I believe it's 8% to 10%. And so we were hearing stories from the families, particularly seniors in our city. We have a lot of mobile home parks. And so they were coming to the council and letting us know that some of them were combining their SSI checks. Some of them our seniors were asking their kids for money, and they were very vulnerable. You can see that on YouTube. And they were letting us know, me asking my kids for money is creating tension between our relationships. And so seniors really, I think, bared it all out. And we were in the chamber until it was 2 a.m., if I'm not mistaken. And ultimately, we helped pass this ordinance. And in 2024, the voters of our city enacted it in our charter, which means that it is now protected, that no politician, even if the makeup of the council does change, they cannot remove it. Only the will of the voters in our community can. And so that was something that was incredibly important. My election in 2020 also helped change the narrative of investing in public spaces, protecting public land, and investing in parks in our city. Our parks have been completely neglected. They had our families were not visiting our parks. There was no programming happening. And so a lot of the work that has happened in the district that I represent is to program our parks, to invest in our parks, and to really build them out and provide the infrastructure that so many young people need in our community. And there's been so much work that has happened these past 6 years that I've been on the Santa Ana City Council. And I'm a candidate now running for state assembly because I think it is imperative in this moment that we have not just a Democrat representing us, but a Democrat that is going to have the courage to say no, a Democrat that is not going to sell out our communities the way that the way that it is happening right now, and a Democrat that is going to be effective and be able to get things done. And that's the record that I bring. I'm the only council member currently right now that puts policy forward on a monthly basis and is successful to get it across and implemented. I'm the only candidate in this race that's an elected that meets with their community members on a monthly basis, has a monthly newsletter, because staying in connection with them is incredibly important. And I also help fight for 2 good ordinances. One of them was to ensure that city staff, that whether you're a commissioner or you're an elected, that you did not have the authority to give your friends or your family members city contracts, which was happening in our city, believe it or not. And I'm sure you all can believe it because, we all heard about the corruption happening here in Anaheim. And so that was something that we fought to implement, and I was successful. And in my first year, I also fought to implement a lobbyist registry in the city of Santa Ana, and that was also successful. And so there's been a lot of great policy, but ultimately, I think when I think about the issues that I care about, when I think about the people that I care about, it transcends the boundaries of my district. And that's why I'm a candidate running for state assembly. And we have very clear, very forward policy pillars. Investing in public education. Our current school districts do not receive the adequate funding that they need, not only per student, but to retain their workforce and to invest in our facilities. I'm sure you've all seen the news of teacher layoffs happening all throughout the state, and that is because right now we are so heavily dependent on state funding, and we are not getting what we need. And even though we have different propositions, billions of dollars are being withheld right now by the governor. And so our school districts, our educational institutions are feeling that. Additionally, I'm the only candidate in this race openly talking about single-payer healthcare. It is something that we desperately need. And today I woke up to the news that Mexico is implementing single-payer healthcare. So I want you to remember
Mexico.
all the times that we have been told that Latin American countries can never compare to the United States. But look at the policies that they are fighting for and investing for, because they recognize the value that they bring to our lives and to our health. And so while all of our premiums are going to continue to go up, not only because of the attacks coming from the White House, but because a lot of organizations now are losing funding, and a lot of people are going to be displaced from Cal Optima, the medical system that we have here in Orange County, we need to start thinking about how do we provide healthcare for everybody in our community, which is a public good for all of us. Because when everybody here is less sick, that means that less people are exposed to other things. And it means ultimately that as taxpayers, you pay less into someone waiting 8 or 10 hours at an emergency room. We're also hearing about hospital closures, maternity wards closures. One of those happened in my own city. And so the state really needs to start thinking about how it is going to shift and respond to the urgent need that exists right now in our communities and that has existed. Additionally, I am talking about affordability and everything that falls under the affordability umbrella, whether that is healthcare, whether that's childcare. I'm running against an opponent that is quoted on the newspaper saying that childcare is not worth it to him, and he helped return almost $7 million to the state, that was meant to come into our community, bring union jobs, invest our local infrastructure, invest in community centers, and provide health care for working and provide a child care for the families of our city.
David did what? He gave money back to the state?
Yes.
$7 million.
So he had to have 3 other votes to do that, huh?
So they actually didn't. It's a whole other thing.
Okay, tell me later.
So he's quoted on the paper saying that, and these are all the things that we hear from our families right now that they need help with, and so we're running on a very open and transparent campaign. We're not here to deceive any voters. I have a clear voting record. I am the only progressive in this race, and I'm really proud of that. And I am being supported by the Working Families Party. I've been with them since 2020. I was the first candidate in California that they endorsed. And so we've helped build their infrastructure as well, because I feel like I share the same sentiment with other people when I talk to them, whether they're in Orange, whether they're in Anaheim, whether they're in Winter Park, wherever they live, right? That we feel like we do not have ethical, responsible representation right now, where we have allowed the politics of our party that is supposed to stand up for the working class, that is supposed to say, how can I help you? That is literally the job of a public servant, just completely selling us out to their corporate donors. And so we need to ensure that we are not only energized, but we are talking to our neighbors and we are saying, we can do this, right? And I feel like our races in Santa Ana have always been the epitome of that, being told multiple times that I needed to wait my turn, not being handpicked by Sacramento, right, the way David has been, and there's a reason. They want someone that's not going to ask questions, that is not going to be prepared, that is mediocre, and ultimately that is not going to care about each and every one of you in this room, right? Why should a Democratic candidate not come talk to the voters of Anaheim? Why? But they want your vote? Exactly. The disrespect that we all have to deal with on a daily basis from people that think that they know it all, that they're too good for us to even come here to the same community that they claim that they want to represent. And that's why I'm here. We're here to earn every vote. We're here to earn your respect, and we're here to answer your questions honestly. Thank you.
Woo! Question.
I have a question. Jessie, when it comes to what's going on with ICE in our communities, can you say abolish ICE?
Abolish ICE. And I'm very proud to be endorsed by Chula, the only candidate, because of all the work that we did last year. When electeds like David refused to be out in the community on the front lines, and only wanted to put out statements and condemning the looting that wasn't even happening in our community, right? They were trying to set up a narrative as to why we should be punished by law enforcement. And it was so incredibly important that we were out there and correcting that narrative that they were trying to push on social media. And even the Republican Party, retweeted the mayor of our city, saying, the supervisor and this council member are attacking law enforcement, destroying buildings when we were unarmed and they had the guns. We were there in plain clothes. I was there, just trying to ensure that my constituents weren't going to get shot because there were so many young people out there, really, and we were there just, dealing with the fact that people could get picked up in our city simply for speaking Spanish, for the color of their skin. And that is unjust, that is racism, that is stereotyping people. And I was really proud of all the work that we did, not just with our community, but with the Orange County Rapid Response Network. And, there's a picture of me literally being in the middle of these armed men in my community. And I mean, genuinely, I thought I was going to get shot. I thought I was going to die there. And fortunately, nothing happened. But this is the type of courage that we need from electeds, not just in this moment, but every single day.
Hell yeah.
What's your take on small businesses, like small taquerias and all these are kind of getting run down for development in Santa Ana? Or a small business, like this guy has a tire business. He had vendor truck storage there. They took it out. I think it was Frank's place. And everything's being built on Harbor. And all of a sudden he's being attacked with nickel and dime code enforcement. But some of the small vendors, they're also being attacked by code enforcement health departments.
I think you bring up an incredibly important issue, right, of where is the support for small businesses in our community, in the fourth largest economy, right? The fourth largest, we could be our own freaking country. And where is the support for the small businesses of this state? And that's what I hear from the businesses in my community when I'm speaking with them in downtown, and they're having to ask people for help. They're having to reduce their work hours. Sometimes they can't open on a Monday or on a Sunday just to try and save pennies. And that's what we really want to ensure that we're also taking a look at. How do we better provide the resources for small businesses that don't have it right now? And that's incredibly important because that's an economic opportunity for many families. And so I think it's incredibly important that as we think about California growing in its economy, we have to ask ourselves, how are we all benefiting from living in the fourth largest states? Yeah. And I just want to say part of the work that I did on the city council was we had really old code that said that small businesses could not put an A-frame out there because the city would fine them. And I worked with small businesses in the city to remove that language from our code so that they wouldn't get fined. And now they're able to advertise. And a small business like this cannot compare with a big corporation in terms of advertising. So we need to be flexible. We need to understand the needs of small businesses. And we can't always, be very punitive with small businesses.
Right on.
Do council members have any say about UFO disclosures?
Oh, great question, and quite an exciting one. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find out. Yes, yeah. I don't know if council members. We certainly don't get any of those secrets. I don't know about the state assembly members. Yeah.
So you'll find out.
I'll find out if there's a UFO committee I can sit on.
We got a knock door.
Well, you motivated us there. Anybody else?
Just wanting to make sure that Estantinas again, we don't take any money from any scientists.
No, I took a position in I think it was last year, actually in 2023, to support a ceasefire publicly. That's one of the differences in this race. And many people are going to say, well, why should I care? I live in Anaheim. I live in Santa Ana. I live in Orange. And you should care because you should want someone representing you that believes in the basic principle of justice, that believes that killing innocent children and families and destroying institutions is wrong. And so that's why that matters to us at the local level. And it matters because we all work incredibly hard. Who here works 2 or 3 jobs? That is how you want your money to be invested in a foreign country that is violating international law, not respecting the United States as a partner has made us a laughing stock globally. No, I want my dollars here in my public schools, in my hospitals. I want my dollars in my communities, making sure that workers are being paid, making sure that seniors have somewhere to live, making sure that people that have served this country are not homeless, sleeping behind the Walmart, like so many veterans in our communities. And so that's where I want our public tax dollars to be invested, here at home with Americans.
And this was important too to various Zionist groups that we saw donating to David because he didn't vote that way.
So I know you've been here for a couple hours. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. There are many ways that you can get involved with our campaign. You can help knock on doors. You can help text people on our behalf. You can help call voters. If you know any small businesses, we have placards that small businesses can host on their windows. But ultimately, talk to your neighbors, spread the word. We have a June 2nd primary, and you're going to be able to start voting in May. So we are days away from the month of May. We have a really important election. Our election is going to be decided June 2nd. And all of you, if you believe in the vision that we bring forward, if you believe in the issues that we're fighting for, if you believe in equality and equity, in a more responsible and responsive government, a more transparent California, then there is room for everybody in this room to be part of our campaign. Thank you so much.
Can you hold this?
Thank you, Jessie, and I move that we endorse Jessie Lopez for assembly. Second. Everybody agree?
It doesn't normally happen that easily.
Well, I warned everybody. Does anybody disagree?
No.
And thank you. And just mail around. You can talk to people. We got a couple. Did you want to? Anyone want to say anything about Albert? Or not? Our ICE people are not here, but no updates or anything you need from us.
Tell them about Thursday.
So we're having my mom lives on 620 North Anaheim Boulevard, and we'll be hosting Platica with Jessie there. Please come. We're going to have coffee and panecito. For those that love carbs, please come and join us. We would appreciate it. But we would also appreciate your guys' support at the city council meeting. We've been pressuring, and they are refusing to provide the name of the officers that shot Albert, which I think is really important. And the DA has the autopsy on hold. They're refusing to provide the autopsy, which I think is crucial and very important.
It never takes this long.
No, and by law, they should have to release the officer's name 90 days after the shooting, but they're citing that there's threats against the officers, which is not true.
Yeah.
None of us have threatened them, but we do want them exposed. We want all of you guys to know who's patrolling your community and what they're capable of doing.